going on?
Well,
Mel.
I'm a single mom. I have a beautiful 2-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to find somebody that will take in somebody with a child. And I found a great guy about a year ago that has been wonderful. I love him. My child loves him. Everything's been going wonderful. Until about a week ago, I was hearing rumors in my small town that he had cheated with the trailer park slut.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to talk to her because we've been friends for about 9 years. She pulls up and wouldn't even get out of the car.
Oh.
I was sitting there just banging on the window, about broke my hand.
Probably frightened her.
Yeah, and she's like, I'm pregnant, I'm pregnant, I'm pregnant with this kid.
Okay. Okay, you think she really likes him?
She's saying she does, but she's also with
Shawn Windsor.
And they've been dating, I believe, for about 4 months.
You asked interrogative questions out of my face. It's gone.
What are you doing?
That is not paid for by them. That is paid for by the people of Detroit.
You might be qualified, ML.
I'm not qualified for this job.
Let me tell you something. You want to go right now? Okay? You want to go right now, Al?
You know, every week we try and edit something and work in our names and do everything like that. There was no editing this week. It's well known that if you're looking for somebody who's with the trailer park slut, it's probably Shawn Windsor. In fact, we think that's where he may be right now.
So the best part about it is he's not here to respond. So
yeah, we can't rule it out. And his dedication to this show, this audience,
is lacking.
His small but diehard fan base is such that the only reason he would skip out is because there was some sort of trailer park tramp who requires his attention.
As a leader of the Shawn Windsor fan club, it's mainly because he's been traveling around for sports. I mean, Greenville, South Carolina, Michigan basketball. He's been following them. You know, now he's in Lakeland, we think.
Water sports. That's sports.
Gross.
That's where I think he is. But we can't rule it out. You know, my favorite part about that Springer show is this woman finds out, like in a week, that her guy is cheating with the so-called trailer park tramp, and within a week they have her on the show.
Yeah.
I mean, how is that for... There's a problem down there? Okay, we get him on. Well, our guest today is Chris Richard, who used to book people for the Jerry Springer Show. I don't think Amy was one of his guests, but we can't be entirely sure. Chris, does that sound like one of yours?
It does not, but it does sound familiar. It was a reoccurring theme throughout my whole time there in the season that I spent working at the Springer Show.
So heartbreak was just one of the many themes that Chris developed for viewers there, bringing people from a place where they may not have had electricity to a place where they have planes and room service and all kinds of enticements that might encourage you to share your personal angst with an audience of millions. But before we get to Chris, we want to tell you about the people who make it possible for us to be there. That's our good friends, Luke Nowacki, Hall Financial, and the good people at the Caju Cafe. Always something good going on at Hall Financial. What's this week's inducement, Mark?
Well, they're starting to cover the cost of the appraisal, saving you up to $750. That's pretty good. If you're looking for a new home, the first place you want to do, or the first thing you want to do, is call Hall first, 866-CALL-HALL, or go online, callhallfirst.com. We all know what's happening with rates. It never hurts to call. Do you want refinance? Even if it's not a new mortgage, there's a lot of things you can do, and the only way to find out is to call Hall First. They have the quickest closings, too. I think what do they average? Like 9 days? You used them, right? Didn't they close yours super fast?
They closed one of them super fast. The other one I kind of screwed around on. But it was a complicated deal. But they made it happen. That was what was so amazing, is not only were they nimble, but when I threw some curveballs at them, they still managed to make the deal happy.
So you can be just like ML, 866-CALL-HALL or callhallfirst.com.
What, you unemployed and sad?
No,
no. You can be more successful than me, and it
slumlord.
starts with some a good partner when you're trying to close that deal.
There you go.
And when you're trying to plan for your retirement, which I thought I'd been retired by the voters a few months ago, but I may be back. I may rise like
a phoenix.
Well, I was looking for a different key, like a peacock. Oh no,
They're pretty much
didn't work
dead
out
now,
either.
right? Yeah,
They're plucked too.
But overreaction, that is not the strategy you want. If you're going to be a long-term investor, what you want to do is call our buddy Luke Nowacki, Pinnacle Wealth, 248-663-4748, because he's going to provide you rational financial advice, stocks, bonds, how to allocate your 401k, how to allocate a 529. What can you do with that 529, that college savings plan? Get advice, get a strategy. Once again, Luke Nowacki at Pinnacle Wealth, 248-663-4748.
And when you call Luke, he'll make it all about you, sweetheart.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Royal Alliance Associates Inc. Member FINRA SIPC. Royal Alliance Associates Inc. is separately owned, and other entities and/or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Royal Alliance Associates Inc.
Yeah.
And make sure when you contact our sponsors, please let them know that you heard about them from the show. Just tell them ML sent you. Or if you want to go to their website, there's a link on our website, which is mlsoulofdetroit.com. On Friday night, I had some free time, and so I called up my man, John Rutherford from the Caju Cafe, and I said, hey, why don't we go out to dinner? And so we hit a few spots. It was a big night at the Caju, but since he's one of the bosses there, he kind of wanted to see another part of town. Nevertheless, we ended up at the Caju at the end of the night, and guess who was sitting at the end of the bar?
That's pretty open-ended, so I don't know. Kwame.
A drunk.
Oh.
No, it was someone who could control their alcohol. But Kid Rock's drummer was there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because when you go to the Caju, because John's he's a big player. He plays trombone for the Seeger Band and a lot of other places. He's going to be doing some gigs this summer with some Motown acts. He knows just about everybody in the business who's still local, and of course people out of town. So there's always something going on at the Caju. It's the pride of the East Side. Every Monday is open blues jam and Muscle Madness. Tuesdays is funk night. Wednesday, they have karaoke, and then there's live music Thursday through Sunday. Friday, it's the Gas Hounds and Ladyship Warship. Saturday, Panda House, Common Ground, and Jackson and the Pool Sharks. And Sunday, it's Nikki T and the Snake Charmers, followed by Dave Vasella. So you want to find out more about what's going on at the Caju, go to cajucafe.com. If you're there late enough, I may crawl in. And, I missed the Smiths United on Saturday because I was out of town. But I'm sure they had a big crowd and put on a great show because it's getting time for outdoor music, and that beer garden at the Caju is the place to go.
Not to doubt this person's story, but how much vetting did you do when they said they were Kid Rock's drummers? Because he's been through, I think when you think of Kid Rock's drummer, you think of Twisted Brown Trucker and Stephanie. Is that who you're talking about? Or was it another? Because he's had other drummers.
Yeah, this was an older cat with...
Okay. Male?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think did you do any vetting?
So I'll just say I may have, but at that point in the evening, my recall was not, it kind of got a little hazy from then on. And it was just like, hey, this guy played drum for Kid Rock. And I'm like, well,
there you go.
Yeah, cool. It sounds like somebody's playing
so you did
on my skull right now.
Zero vetting whatsoever.
I did not check the provenance. There was no resumes were requested. I did not look at the back of any album covers for liner notes.
So anybody could go to the Caju and pretend to be anybody because you're not going to vet them.
No, everybody's welcome at the Caju. Let me be clear about that. But I did see Brian Jones there too, and Charlie Watts. It was like old bandmates day. But maybe now I'm thinking about maybe those guys.
That could have been lies too, yeah.
Oh, shit. Well, I'm not saying this guy was lying, but those other, man. Well, you know what? Now I think about, so that Keith Moon guy who pissed on my shoe at the urinal, probably a liar.
Well, regarding, I guess that kind of segues pretty nice into Chris, because booking for Jerry Springer, I imagine the vetting of people would be, I don't know, kind of hard as to whether or not their story's true, or did you not really care about that, Chris?
No, if you have a full set of teeth, you're out.
Well, if the story's a story, I don't know how that worked.
No, yeah, it was a fun job. I started as an intern at the Springer Show. Back then it was the production company was USA Productions, and when positions became available, they would hire from their pool of interns. So I worked as a booking person as well as an associate producer of the show.
Oh, okay.
And all of the guests that we would use back then would call that 1-800-9, or I think it was 1-800-96 Jerry.
Yep.
Something like that. Yep. So it was a huge, phone system that would ask people to give us their name and number and contact information, as well as what their story is. So a lot of the time was sitting on the phone.
And you were there at the dawn of the internet too, so it's not like you could check Facebook pages and Twitter and anything else about a person. That kind of was fun back in those days, I would imagine.
Yeah, and the amount of calls that came in. I mean, obviously there's some, probably some young kids that are, spamming that call and, making comments and then hanging up and things like that. But most of the calls are actual people that had a story or were looking to the Springer Show for help. But my focus was on love triangles. Oh. That's where I was. That's where I excelled at.
Expertise, yeah.
So when they were hiring, did you rise above the other interns? Because they would come to Jay with things like, I have this couple, they really love each other, they're in counseling, and I think they can work it out. I think there's hope for them. And another intern comes in and says, I got this couple, they're kind of feuding. They're first cousins, so that's cool, but they may not be violent. And then you come in and you say, I got this guy, he married a recliner, and he's cheating on the recliner with his aunt, who speaks in tongues and thinks that the election was stolen. And they said, Richard, we like the cut of your jib. We're bringing you on full time. Or was there a more sophisticated process than that?
It was that, and the fact that I was graduated and out of school with a degree in television production and film. So, and the other interns, they were great too, but most of them were still in school. And I had the ability to be there full time. So, yeah, and I had been there for a little while and as an intern, so I knew kind of how the ropes were, but it was a very fast-paced, fast-moving environment. 6 producers, 6 associate producers, 6 shows per week, and they were pretty much taped back to back, usually 2 or 3 a day.
Now, one of the most famous love stories, and I've heard Jerry say it's probably the wildest one that he ever had, was the guy that married his horse, Pixie, and I believe the guy's name was Mark. That's just stuck with me because I know we had him on.
It's a very Mark thing to do.
We had him on the Drew and Mike show. You were not involved with that one, but you remember that episode because you were there then, right?
I do remember that, and I remember that we had to have animal welfare groups on the set to make sure that the horse was well taken care of and there wasn't any abuse going on. So it was quite interesting. That was a big day.
Well, Springer was also known for fights. I mean, that was a big part of it, but then they clamped down on that. Is there anything you can tell us behind the scenes regarding the fighting era of Jerry Springer?
Yeah, that was right in the heyday of my time there. And they were real fights, and they really happened, and it was sort of, part of the storyline, but it was, some sort of fact or something that we would reveal about somebody that would make the fight happen, and we kind of knew what those triggers were with our guests, so we were able to get them a little bit more energized, especially with knowing what would trigger them off to start the fight.
Well, it couldn't be that difficult, right? You like, my so-and-so's cheating with somebody and somebody's here, and then release the hounds, or did people not know who was going to come out from behind the backstage? I mean, if you call me and say, hey, ML, we want you to come on the Springer Show and your wife or girlfriend's going to be there, I know this is not going to be one of these trips I put in the scrapbook, but were there people who were genuinely surprised, like, oh, shit, that's what it's all about?
Yes. We would keep things very private and very separated. So, you know, if you called in and we were working with your story on a show, you know, we would bring you in separately on a separate flight in a separate hotel, and then your guests would be the people that we reveal would be separated and in a different hotel on a different flight.
Or a different stable in some cases.
Exactly.
But then you get in that tricky thing, because around mid 90s with Jenny Jones, you know, very kind of a similar show. I think you said it was taped across the hall, which
right
is kind of
across the hall from us.
You know, the murder of Scott Amador, which is a huge story here locally. So you don't want to keep. I mean, that's such a tricky balance. How did you play with that balance of letting them know enough, but still wanting the reaction on camera?
You know, I had to be very careful about it. And prior to, you know, them going on the show to tape, you know, we had a bunch of other staff members that worked at the Springer Show that would sort of vet them and vet their triggers and see how far, you know, you could push somebody. We had like a psychologist on staff, and they would, you know, be able to, you know, talk with the guests prior to them going on. So it was a very careful situation. I'm not going to lie. I screwed up several of them when I first started, but, you know, you learn from those and you move forward.
Well, I had another question, but tell us about the screw ups. Yeah. That's the good stuff.
Or I would reveal something to them on the phone prior to them coming in that I wasn't supposed to reveal. So, you know, it was sort of my screw ups in that way so then they would kind of know who the other guests were going to be on the show. You know, these are real. Back then it was and you know, when I was there, they were real people. They were real from all over the country, and we would listen to their stories, and some of them felt like this was an answer to get some help or get some counseling or be provided help after the show and so on and so forth. But, you know, obviously it has a track record. I mean, the Springer Show has been what it has been for forever. So
how many people said, "You're calling from the Springer Show? Oh, crap."
Probably 95% of them. Yeah.
Well,
so how do you get past that?
Yeah. How do you convince them? Did they get paid?
No, you know, they didn't get paid. You convince them by, you know, telling them that this is a huge show, a big production. You know, obviously the Springer name has a ring to it, and so people like to get their 15 minutes of fame. A lot of them use this as like a way to take a mini vacation, which is really, you know, literally 2 days in the city of Chicago, and or that's where it was taped back then. So yeah, these people would come out. They would be excited about stretch limos and the Holiday Inn Express or whatever, where everything's taken care of, and free meals at restaurants and so on and so forth.
Pink Zinfandel by the bottle. Do they sell Pink Zinfandel in a Magnum? Can you get a big bottle of that? Or you probably do, but it comes with a toy.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
Now, Jerry always claimed that he didn't know like what the storyline was going to be, and I just found that really hard to believe that if you're the host of a show that they would keep him that much in the dark. Is he telling the truth when he says that?
He is. He would show up maybe about 20 minutes before taping when I was there. And so, you know, he would show up right before the show was going on. We'd hand him his cards. He would, you know, be able to read a little bit about what was going to happen. But most of the time he had no idea. It was sort of it was done via surprise. And he's great at his job as being a host. Very quick-witted and good with, you know, keeping a storyline moving along from the start to the end.
So he came up with those sweet final thoughts on the fly?
So the final thoughts were, back then, it was like a mixture of executive producers and his team that would put those final thoughts on those cards. And some of them were ad-libbed at the last minute.
And were there always final thoughts, or was this added sometime after the show started? Because it was on for 20 or 30 years.
It had been a thing for a long time prior to me arriving. So I think that was kind of like the end of the show, kind of the, closing of the chapter, closing of that cover of the book, and then moving on to another episode. So,
and was this purely to try and bring some redeeming social value to that episode, or was it something that Jerry in his heart felt like if someone just took a couple minutes and said something very personal into a camera, these people could get their lives back on track and never have to come back again?
You know what? It's a little bit of both there. It's a little bit of both. I think the people that were on the show, from my interaction with them, believed that this was going to be somewhat of an answer to help clean up whatever their problem was, or to offer something that they didn't have back at home, that they could, another person's view, or, just the cachet of being on the Springer show. So these were real people. When I was there.
After their segment, were they genuinely okay with it, or were there a lot of people like, oh God, that did not go I mean, there's a lot of emotion. Don't forget, you always have the audience yelling at them.
Oh,
too.
yeah.
The audience, the best audience in TV history easily is Jerry Springer's. But I would feel like after the show, would they be like, okay, well, that was TV, or no, my life is pretty much screwed right now, especially if you're working in love triangles.
Yeah, that was something that I wrestled with, because, it did several of them. It did screw up their lives even more than it was prior to them coming on the show, or, nothing got fixed, or things got much, much, much worse. And, so that was usually something that I would think about a lot after a show had gone to tape and then was in post-production.
What's funny about Springer and Jenny Jones and all those shows, though, is that there's a lot of exposure for people of different communities. I mean, that's a lot of times, they'd be gay people, or, transsexuals. I mean, it was pretty much anybody and everybody. I don't know, was that ever by plan, or was that just, hey, this will get eyeballs because, here's a transsexual woman that cut off her legs, which was an episode, by the way.
What?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Wow, they removed the wrong limbs.
Yeah, so that was, Springer was always very open to everybody and anybody who had a story to tell, or had fallen into a love triangle, or was facing some sort of issue that was a show topic. So, they definitely, there were some characters that I had met along the way while I was there. There was a whole team that was dedicated to, there was love triangles, and there was gay love triangles, and then, there was like special situations where there was a team of people that worked on like shows like I'm in the KKK and so are my kids, or I think it was also, there was one that was like, I'm a 600-pound transvestite stripper and I'm in love with your man. Like those were, didn't fall completely in other people's wheelhouses. So we had a team of people that would work on those shows.
Was there ever a guest or a topic where you or Jerry or somebody on the team said, no, we can't do this, or where something was shot but not aired because folks said, okay, this is, people say there's no line, this is the line, we are drawing it right here?
You know, I never experienced that, but I do know that it did happen, and that would happen prior to anybody even being booked to be on the show or traveling to the show whatsoever. Like, they had a very good vetting process.
What what are some of your most memorable segments or shows that you've produced and booked and put together? Is there one that stands out that you're proud of, either because it turned out well or proud of because it was just utterly insane?
I don't remember. Well, I was one of the people that worked on the Transvestite Stripper and In Love with Your Man. I worked on that show.
There was only one episode like that?
No, I'm sure there's more than that.
Yeah, it seems like a mini franchise.
You know, nothing comes to light. I was just very pleased if we had a very successful show in terms of, you know, storyline, that nobody got hurt, that everybody, well, physically too much, that everybody got home and, you know, safely. So nothing comes to mind 100%. I did so many shows for a year and a half that they just sort of all pile up in my brain.
And did this show evolve? Because it became so outrageous at times. I wonder, did this start as like a little public affairs thing where Jerry was more like Charlie Rose, and then things just started to dial up? I mean, when Geraldo had chair throwing Nazis, did the Springer team say, okay, we got to get, you know, we need somebody to throw a couch. Somebody's got to drop a grand piano on a member of the Klan. I mean, how did this thing get to the point that it got to?
You know, I think as ratings were increasing and people were reacting in the limited internet at that point, that it became more and more popular, that the show continued the trajectory that it was on. Back when I was there, you know, Steve Wilkos, who has his own show now, was in fact a security, or I guess
you broke up the fights.
Yeah, he broke up fights back then. But now, you know, I noticed he's got his own gig from all this.
Well, I mean, all TV has kind of evolved now. I still maintain that I don't think Springer could happen today, and maybe the internet fills whatever that void is. Maury is done now, which was kind of a surprise. And when everybody thinks Maury, they think of the DNA test, the "you are not the father." I mean, that was his bell cow. And I always wondered, like, why not just make that the show? Like, every episode should be "you are the father." They should be DNA tests. Did you guys go through that with Springer? Like, wow, the ones that hit really well are, I didn't know my girlfriend is a boy, or, I mean, there's so many of those, or love triangles. Was there some kind of balance where it's like, we want more of these shows, but we got to sprinkle in, you know, this person that cut off their penis?
You know, my focus was literally love triangles for a long time. So once we had once you get a few of them in your production realm, you pretty much can keep going on that trajectory. There are a lot of love triangles out there that need to be solved, that need help, and people need to be solved and share their story. So, yeah, it was an experience, and I enjoyed every minute of it. But it was a ton of work. It was a lot of hours, a lot of lost nights and early mornings.
Well, you should be. I mean, you should be proud of what you did, right? It was a very successful show, and you did what you did. But I imagine in your, like, what you do now, and when you talk to people and you bring it up, there's probably maybe a visceral reaction, like, oh.
Yeah. Where does that go on your resume?
It doesn't. No. When I got this job, I did not put it on my resume. I did put that I had some experience in production and TV directing and producing, but I did not put that show down directly. I was using, it was my first job out of college after I had gotten my bachelor's degree, and so I was using it as also a stepping stone to get me into other shows or continue my television career in the behind the scenes.
And when you tried to go to another show, did they know where you were coming from? Did you have to sort of dance around it a little bit? I mean, there were a lot of things being produced in Chicago at that time.
Yeah, I did have to put that down on my resume back then for those jobs, and there were several groups that wouldn't interview me, or I was not, even if it was, no matter what the TV show was that I was working on, that was not something that they was in their wheelhouse. And, I tried to get over to Harpo Studios many, many times.
Oprah,
but yeah, that didn't happen. Usually people that were on, past, again, like they go to Jenny Jones or Judge Mathis or Judge Joe Brown back then. There were a few other shows that were filming in the city of Chicago at that time too.
So was there a continuum? It's like you start at Springer and then you go to Jenny Jones, and you go from Jenny Jones to Phil Donahue, and from Phil Donahue to 60 Minutes. I mean, where did people end up when they left the Springer orbit?
Usually on other talk shows for sure. If not, then definitely, usually they ended up at a different show, like a judge show or some sort of other, daytime show that was in the area. None of the people that I worked with, I knew none of them really moved on to CNN or any, sort of news outlet.
They're blacklisted.
That. Yeah. Or it was just that wasn't of interest to them. I was more news and oriented than, originally when I started. And when I started, I was like, I could do this for the rest of my life, doing the Jerry Springer show. But I was also a big news geek and very into media and broadcast. So I moved my direction from Springer over to back into news media.
And today, Chris operates a very successful chop shop, and he traffics in human organs. So I'm glad that this didn't stop you from realizing your dream. But did you ever keep in touch with any of these people who left the show? And,
God, no.
And you
There's
said,
no way.
You said there was some counseling offered. I mean, was that more like, hey, you're nuts, here's your ticket home? Or did people have follow-ups? It's like, you're certified.
That's a cover-your-ass lawyer thing for the show. Come on.
It was, you got it exactly right. It was usually we send you back home, and if we can find some local counseling that was
I'm sure you tried hard.
Free of charge that we could help connect you with, we would. Most of the time, I never heard back from any of the people that were on the show after.
That's probably a good thing. Well, Chris, we appreciate you sharing some of your insights and some of these behind-the-scenes moments. We are kind of a Detroit-focused show, but I know a lot of people in Detroit used to watch this show, and any chance we have. Yeah, it's. And what is Jerry doing these days?
I think he's retired right now.
He's not dating his sister's cousin, who was a 800-pound stripper with prosthesis. I'm
not sure. We'd have to look into that and do some research to see. Maybe, you never know.
ML, you just reminded me, because you said Detroit-based. We had a woman in on the Drew and Mike show who painted with her vagina, and while she was in, she goes, I'm going to be on Springer next week. We're like, what? Really? Do you remember that at all, Chris? Do you remember this one? Because I think it was also mixed into a love triangle. She was a dancer.
I do not remember that one, but
you're not surprised.
I have to look that one up.
Wow, well, that explains a lot of the art in Mark's living room.
Well, I remember taking the artwork that she painted and I put it on the fridge in the common area because it looked like a child's painting. I'm just saying.
The common area at work, not at your house, right?
Oh, God, no. Gross. I don't want that. I don't want disease in my house.
Now your daughters have paintings on the fridge. So
yeah, exactly.
Made by their hands.
Yeah, and you couldn't tell the difference.
Damn.
I'm just saying. I don't know.
Well, Chris, I know you were thinking I could stick around, but maybe you should have left a minute ago. You would have been spared that. But we appreciate your time, and if anybody ever needs a kidney, reach out to us at 313-288-9070. That's Butterfield 89070. We will connect you with Chris. And now we're going to go to another troubled gentleman calling from the South, Mr. Sean Windsor. Sean?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the 90s stuff to finish. Anything else we want to go back and revisit?
Oh, God.
You know, Spring was on until not too long ago.
Yeah, no, I understand that, the Drew and Mike show carries that tradition. But, when we're talking about using your vagina as to paint and disease. And
we're not talking about using ours.
What was wrong with that?
Yeah, no, this is great. Yeah. Good stuff.
Sean, did you not like the Jerry Springer? Nice connection.
You can tell the last couple of weeks. I like the gentleman. No, I like the gentleman.
No, I'm just wondering, did you like the Jerry Springer, Maury, Jenny Jones, Ricky Lake stuff?
Oh, of course not.
Why?
Oh, I forgot about Ricky Lake.
Why?
I mean, I don't know. Why do you want to traffic in other people's troubles that way? It was cheap, and I don't know. There's all sorts of. But it's de rigueur now. It's our society now. It's Twitter, right? Yeah. I mean, at least it's not as produced, I guess. I mean, but that's what Twitter's done. And maybe TikTok and Instagram a little bit, but by and large, Twitter, right, is putting everything out there.
But like Chris was saying, they vetted these people. They call them. They tell them, they know the deal. They put themselves out there. It did open your eyes to there's a lot of different people in the world, and we all are very similar in a lot of ways. They just might have this one proclivity to marry a horse.
Yeah, I was going to say, the less similar I am to the guests on those shows, the better I feel about myself. It was almost like group therapy where you felt better because you saw all these other people and said, okay, my life is not that great, but it's way better than that.
But I'm not going to lie. There's a freak show element to it.
Well, of course, that's all it was.
But that's not all it was.
You either hold up traffic looking at the accident or you don't, and you mind your business, you go on. And you understand that human nature, some people want to marry a horse. That's fine. That's their thing.
Well, yeah, but
Whatever.
I wouldn't have known that unless I watched Springer. Right?
Yeah, you would have. You probably have furries in your circle.
Oh, believe me, I've booked plenty of people on the old Drew and Mike show that were very unique in what they did, and I have no problem with it. I liked doing it. I love doing it. I love finding those different people because I can be pretty boring.
Except for your art
collection.
collection.
I don't think you're boring at all. No, I don't think you're boring at all. By the way, when you had those people booked where they go in at each other, did they have fake security coming out and holding people back from each other? I mean, right? That whole part of it. I doubt it.
I think
you probably wanted to have a sincere conversation.
Most of it was just one-sided, an interview with somebody. We didn't do the three-way surprise. The Jenny Jones, Scott Amador thing is an amazing story from every angle as to how, who's to blame there and how that played out. So we never really got into that, but I loved finding people that just wanted to quote unquote tell their story because there's so many good, unique, bizarre, entertaining stories out there. And I have no problem with what that void he filled and like you were talking about before, ML, the final thoughts.
Oh, yes.
It did kind of close the curtain.
Aesop's fables of Chicago.
Well, it kind of closed the curtain on okay, this circus is over. These are real people. Go on with your life kind of thing. I don't know. Maybe he did that to balance it out. Maybe he didn't.
I suspect that was for legal reasons, but I always question Jerry's sincerity when he said, take care of yourselves and each other right after three people were trying to claw each other to death because they just found out that that they were both married to the same, but
it's a TV show. It's entertainment, just like freak shows were, say, in the 20s and 30s.
No, it's one thing to ask why somebody wants to dress up as a rabbit, right? It's another thing to sit there and enjoy other people's misery and pain. Screw that. I'm tired of that. We have way too much of that. So
I don't mind.
Yeah.
So Sean will only be writing about games the Tigers win this season, and hopefully it's going to be at least 81.
Or maybe making them human when they lose, or explain what happened when they lost. I mean, but go ahead, just keep in your fucking black and white world. That's fine.
Oh,
it's always.
I love angry Sean.
Good to see Sean. Sean, so what are you doing in Lakeland? Not taking an anger management class.
You know what? I'm down here for spring training because wins and losses don't matter. How about that?
Oh,
spring training doesn't matter.
So, you mean because wins and losses don't count in spring training, but once the first game of the season starts,
then I won't write another thing about the Tigers the rest of the year. That's right.
They're going to lose 162 games.
It doesn't matter, right?
That's a bleak prediction.
It doesn't. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying it doesn't matter, according to you.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that sometimes when something bad happens, it gets written about, and it is compelling to people. I mean, we are covering that war in Ukraine, which I'm trying looking real hard for the silver lining. I'm not really seeing one.
No, but I don't know that you're
except for the world coming together against tyranny. That's not bad.
No, it's good to be informed about that. Exactly. But are you enjoying other people? I mean, if you want to compare the coverage of Ukraine to the Jerry Springer show, that's your business. Hey, go at it. But I'm not gonna.
Well, there are. I mean, to that point, it's kind of interesting because there are a lot of people that. I mean, war gets eyeballs. They like to see that, and I don't think it's always from, oh, what a horrible situation the people in Ukraine are going through. A lot of times, it's like, oh my God, it's a war. There's explosions. I can't believe they're decimating the city like this. There is a Gawker aspect to that as well.
If you're a Gawker,
well, I think humans are though. You don't think?
No, not everybody's a Gawker. I mean, they're not. Like get back to the interstate, the highway metaphor.
Some
whatever.
are gapers.
Some people drive right by and don't worry about it. They don't want to, right? And other people don't. They slow down and hold up everything and look or pull their cell phone out or whatever.
But that's why, clickbait exists because human beings like to see that kind of thing.
Some do.
You give me most?
In this country, I give you half at least.
Okay, that's a lot. So one of the ways I always came to peace with when I was at Channel 4, I ended up near the end doing a lot of stuff at the for the 5 o'clock news, usually being a lead story or one of the top two stories. Yeah, I know. 5 o'clock.
Spread out.
And let me just tell you, it always started with breaking news, even when there wasn't any.
Every story's breaking news.
No matter what. We might not even had breaking wind, but we had breaking news, believe me. And I was doing that at the end of the Anna Nicole Smith custody trial. And I think it always ended Inside Edition or one of those sort of, sleazy news shows. And so I'd have to watch the end of it as they're
not
ready
sleazy
to go.
according to Mark. Sorry, Mike.
Well, I think he's saying they're sleazy, just that some people enjoy them, and that there may be perhaps not a lot of socially redeeming value to them. But
I don't think it's just
but people eat candy and not carob because they want the real.
I don't think it's that black and white either. And to be honest with you, I watched a lot of that trial. You're talking about that Judge Larry Seinland, I watched almost that whole
how
trial.
He didn't get thrown off the bench, I don't know.
Exactly, because it's kind of interesting how it works.
But I'd have to listen to the end of that show before they'd come to me live wherever I was. And one of the ways that it stopped bothering me is I realized because people have an appetite for this pablum, they're going to stick around because they're probably too lazy to get out of their recliner. Now, I guess they have Alexa, but to get out of their recliner to change the channel, and they might see something that they might be glad they knew when I came on or when another reporter came on. That's why when you read the newspapers and they have all the different sections, some of the sections are about, whether or not Ben and Jennifer are back together again, which I have no interest in and feel contributes absolutely nothing to the cosmic dialogue. But if somebody goes past my front page story or my back page story to find out about Bennifer, then I guess they have served a little purpose, and someone has gotten a little bit of lettuce on top of their lard burger that just might keep their cholesterol from going through the roof.
And sometimes having that distraction of a trite story like that's kind of nice when there's a lot of heavy news out there. Sean?
No, that's real nice. Speaking of lettuce, I was in a diner.
Here we go.
Recently down in Florida, and a guy walks in. I don't know. Let's just say.
Did he have a duck on his head?
300 pounds, probably. Short red hair, long red beard, looked like a guitarist for ZZ Top. and real affable. But he called in an order, and there was confusion. And the guy behind the counter said, "Well, who did you talk to?" And he said, "Somebody that was trying to tell me I needed lettuce on my burger." And I thought, that guy knows what he wants. We need more of that. He was comfortable and expressing his outrage that somebody wanted to put lettuce on his burger and try to force feed him vegetables. And he didn't want anything to do with it. I thought it was grand.
I've always considered you got to have lettuce on your burger type of guy. I think.
No, I'm a libertarian in most ways.
Okay, but you don't feel comfortable letting the Jerry Springers of the world live. I mean, that libertarians, I think,
no,
would say
they can live. There's a difference between a strap-on and a backside visit in a living room and in a Publix parking lot to go get groceries. You know what I mean? It's all about perspective.
There goes our PG-13 rating. Okay, well, that's all right. And by the way, I think the guys in ZZ Top would object to being characterized as 300 pounds. I don't think Billy Gibbons is three spins.
They look like that from the shoulder up. There he did.
Do you think it's because of the dusters that it didn't have a slimming effect?
Might have been. Who knows?
Okay.
Yeah.
Before we move on to Geek of the Week, I want to see which way Sean falls off the fence with the whole Will Smith, Chris Rock thing.
Did you guys talk about that?
We have not talked about it yet.
We discussed it in our pre-show meeting.
Yeah. Because everyone has an opinion about it.
Yeah, I don't.
What?
Sean's still mad that somebody tried to make him put lettuce on his burger.
Now, does that upset you that was the main focus of the Oscars?
You mean after the Oscars?
Yeah, I mean that was the story.
No, I mean that's the story. It was a big story. That doesn't upset me at all.
Because it was a fight, though. It's very Springer-esque. And I loved every second of it.
No, it wasn't Springer-esque at all. That was real and intense. And I felt a couple things. One, Chris Rock, when you punch down, right, he shouldn't have done that. And my guess is he won't do that again. And two, you got to control yourself. But if you're Will Smith, obviously he's sitting there laughing and he looks over at Jada and then reacts. And, you kind of feel for him because.
No, I don't. Not one bit.
No. To snap like that, well, then fine. Then you don't feel comfortable. Anybody's got internal struggle or feeling not secure in themselves, which he clearly doesn't. He's a Scientologist. And by the way, not to get off.
Who's a Scientologist?
Yeah, they are. Why does
Will Smith?
Tom Cruise? Yeah, they are.
Oh.
I mean, and we're all searching, and I understand that. And whatever you want to search for, that's fine. But clearly, despite all his success and his obvious talent and charisma, there's something internally that it's not. He's struggling with.
That's fine. I don't doubt that, and that's
and I have some empathy for people that have that kind of struggle, especially that publicly. Forget all the money makes, the fame, whatever else. It doesn't matter. You're still sitting there on an island by yourself, and you react like that in front of all those people and all those cameras. You can't control yourself. That says something. Of course, he was wrong.
I think it's bullshit to not be able to control yourself in a moment like that.
Okay, fine. Then we don't ever need prisons or jails or laws. We can just have a society with nothing to structure us at all because we're always going to be able to control ourselves in every moment.
No, of course not. But I think you could do a little better than that.
Do you think it was staged?
Or maybe you do better next time, right? You'll learn.
Do you think this was a set piece that
I don't think
Will Smith came up with on the fly? Like, I better do something.
He is a good actor. I mean, the reaction.
He convinced me he was Ali until he couldn't knock over an 80-pound guy in a tuxedo.
I mean, his lip was almost quivering. He was so angry and lost in that moment. I mean, but he is a hell of an actor. So.
I mean, you want us to understand what he's going through. How about he understands that maybe Chris Rock had no idea about this alopecia thing? Because I bet
I don't believe that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I don't believe that either. I'm with you, Mike. But I'd say both.
A lot of people didn't know.
At some point, stop punching down like that, right?
It was a stupid joke about a haircut.
Well, you know what, though, Sean? I think if you want to talk about punching down, Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith seem to be pretty high up. I mean, they had a premium seating at the Oscars. Maybe it was a parallel punch, but I read something in The Guardian this morning that was really, really interesting, at least to me, that said that the writer said Will Smith in his autobiography or his memoir talked about watching his mother get abused by his father.
I saw that.
And that he has felt, I had a feeling we both read The Guardian, but only you read The Economist, but that he's felt his whole life like a coward for not standing up to defend his mother. And so in that moment, I'm willing to entertain the notion that he kind of thought it was funny and he was going to brush it off. But then when he saw how hurt his wife was, this was a moment to stand up like he didn't do when he was a kid. Maybe that's reading too much into it, but I think there's a lot going on.
That's not the time or place to do that.
Of course.
Well, of course not. I Mike or Mark.
But he didn't rise to the occasion when he was a kid, and I think that's always bothered him. I mean, it's possible that always bothered him, but still, yeah. I mean, come on. I mean,
can't we have both? Can't we say both things are true? Of course, it's not the time or place to do that. He shouldn't have done it, and that's why he apologized. I don't know what kind of consequences he's gonna suffer for this. On the other hand,
none, because he's Will Smith.
Maybe not. Other than the damage I don't know. Does it damage his reputation? Who knows? Probably not.
Yeah, I didn't think it was a very funny joke. So if I'm Chris Rock,
lame. It was
if I'm Chris
joke.
Rock, I go back into the writer's room and I said, I told you this wasn't that funny a joke. I just got slapped on TV. So thanks, guys. And
it's also been interesting looking at the reactions from Black America within and white America, right? I mean, that's been really interesting.
How so?
For sure. Well, there's a lot of talk, at least in parts of the Black community, because it's not a monolith, obviously, but in parts that this digs in deep to the idea of hair and a Black woman's hair.
Which, by the way, Chris Rock produced a whole documentary.
Exactly. And I think there was I even saw some stories and some comments from some folks saying, of all people, he should know better because of that documentary, right? How sensitive that is.
It's another thing, though, where it was clearly a joke. I really don't think he would make that joke if he knew about the whole alopecia thing. And you can't make jokes anymore.
Well, I would like to have seen Will Smith say, not funny, not funny.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or that's the best you got.
Yeah. Heckle him. I'm sure he's used to having.
Or he could have said, this is why everybody hates Chris. Now, that would have been funny.
And that would have been, that would have been
He should have called me. He's got my number.
That's really funny, though. I didn't think of it as a racial thing when it happened. I just thought, hey, there's a real famous Will Smith hitting another real famous person, Chris Rock.
No, I don't know that the Black folks thought it was a racial thing when it happened as much as the response, the differences in how some white folks are talking about it versus some Black folks. That's been fascinating. Jamel Hill wrote a column in the Atlantic about this very thing yesterday. That was interesting. Just the reaction. And a lot of it has to do with the idea of a Black woman's hair and its place in the culture and always having to adopt white ideals, what white standards of beauty are, all that sort of thing that is baked into 300 years. And not that Will Smith was reacting to that necessarily, but it was, it's layered, isn't it, Mark?
I suppose. I just don't think it needs many think pieces on it because it was a guy who lost his shit when he shouldn't have because he reacted like an asshole.
He did, of course he did.
I think that's pretty simple.
Of course he did. Yeah, that part's simple, but why he reacts, that part's not. I mean, and that's always how it goes, right?
Well, Chris made a bunch of jokes at her expense, when he hosted in 2016 or 2017. So maybe there's some background there, but you don't react that way. I mean, look at Ricky Gervais and all the jokes he threw at people at the Golden Globes. Nobody went up there and slapped him.
No, Mel Gibson wanted to, but
sure,
but nobody, and Johnny Depp actually. But nobody did, yeah.
Will Smith could have easily, he kind of knew he was going to win. He could easily just butted into his speech.
By the way, did you see the movie, King Richard?
No, I have no interest in seeing that movie.
Yeah, I saw it on a plane, actually. He's pretty amazing.
But I know how that story ends. I don't know.
Dude, there's 6 stories in the world. You know how all of them end, right?
I don't know. Maybe I want a little more than that.
I just want to know what happened to the guy who told Will Smith he had to put some lettuce on his burger.
Yeah, no kidding.
And cue the music.
Oh, man, the geeks have inherited.
I was waiting for a response.
Can I do that? What a dork.
Does him wanting to play with us again mean that he's turning into a geek? Or we're turning into cool guys?
Well, while everyone, including us, is talking about the cheap shot heard around Hollywood, listener Nicole directs us to a local Donnybrook. Flint School Board President Danielle Green allegedly assaulted member Laura McIntyre during an afternoon finance meeting earlier this month. Green, who became president in January, promising to be an inclusive leader who would work with her colleagues, allegedly slammed McIntyre's head into a desk, grabbed her throat, and punched her multiple times, leaving blood. McIntyre said afterward, there was no fight. There was no argument. I was chairing a committee meeting and I was attacked, unprovoked. There was no escalation, fight, or attack previous to being attacked. I was brutally attacked and had to seek medical attention. I am only here to see that the truth comes out and justice is served. Now, Superintendent Kevlin Jones said the two board members had disagreed about the topic of building new schools, and the conversation escalated. The police are investigating, but we've heard enough to render our verdict. Former President Green, you are our Geek of the Week.
There's an all-night party in room 7609. And you can dance together all night if you've got the time.
U2 is one of the biggest bands in the world, and they've been called a lot of things. Pretentious, portentous, an art band, political, provocative, over the top, too pleased with themselves. A lot of those things describe new wave bands. But we're going to listen to one of the underappreciated and very topical these days tunes from their album War called Seconds.
U2? Wow. U2 in the new wave room, huh?
Well, we're going to see whether they belong in there after this tune. But yeah, there's still a few big bands out there who we haven't invited into the new wave suite. Well, U2, today, you're welcome. It's your turn.